Greetings, my fellow free will sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning to LL3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful realms of planet Earth. Today's date is Tuesday, March 31st, 2026. This is episode 1955. Patriotic Purge, the real cost of war. Before I proceed, you can follow me on multiple social media sites and podcast channels. Just type in Loki Luck number 3, Loki Luck Roman number 3 with the 3 eyes, or the Loki Luck Roman number 3 podcast. In addition, if you have any questions, comments, recommendations, all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use the quorum. Hit me via email to ll3.podcast@proton.me. If you want to donate, go to PayPal.me or cash.app/Loki Luck number 3. Oh, yeah. So, a little browsing here and there. Listen to some today's news, yesterday's news, and all that. And, just the same old song and dance, you can say. Government knows best. It turns to manure, right? Absolutely. Yeah, it looks like Boca Raton, Florida, gave developers the big middle finger to whole public-private enterprises. And to be very honest, if you read the Florida Constitution, Article 7, Section 10, talking about the illegalities of a public-private enterprise, what you want to do is have a private developer, like the city will sell land to them, public land, for their collage of crap, you can say, right? All in one area. I call them 15-minute cities kind of community, based on what I read. But I'm glad people in Boca said hell no, because they don't want to see extra buildings and sky rises and all that. I'm like looking at some of the videos from the city of Miami, downtown area. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? Creating all these big skyliners on limestone. Tells you how intelligent these architects are. Come on! Entrap yourselves. Live here. Shoot. No way in hell I would do that. And I would rather live in a camper in an open lot across from a jail than those luxurious pigeonholes. Okay, I'll be very fair. They got room and space and trees. It just dawns on me, there's people that's buying that, renting those areas, hook, line, and sinker. Oh yeah, I could spend $3,000 a month on the view of the New River. Woo! Or the beachfront. Woo! Come on. Good grief. That's pathetic, man. Always like space and wildlife. Even like in the areas, like the mangroves and so forth that are living in Florida. It's cool. I dig it, man. I dig those areas. The Everglades and all that. Yeah, I admire that. That's the real Florida. I know they try to, the city of Dania Beach, they shot down one area, which they kept that mangroves there because they trying to some Dinkleberry want to buy it, strip it, and put data centers there. Come on, more fusion centers, you can say, right? Bluffsdale with palm trees. That's Bluffsdale, Utah. People know what I'm talking about there. So, but that's good. It's good to see people fighting back on a local level. They don't want to tie this mega metropolis garbage. I don't blame them one bit. I was never really care for big cities overall. I'm not saying the people there are all bad. It's just that's not my kind of environment. I learned that when I was a young kid too. So living in these big cities and so forth, and I'm in metropolitan communities, I'm not impressed at all, man. And don't get me wrong, I've been very neighborly in those areas, so that's like half the battle. People got hey, be neighborly, be good, just be courteous to the people around you. Don't think that the world everyone should kiss the floor you walk on, because that will blow back in your faces, okay? It doesn't matter who you are, okay? So, it's just really, I found that very delusional, you can say. And I digress. Well, without further ado, I'm going to be reading something here from the activistpost.com. And it originally came from Donald Jeffries' protest. Donald Jeffries wrote this. Political Purge, The Real Cost of War, came out today. Based on Activist Post's article. Good site, activistpost.com. It says here, fighting for corruption and profits. The great General Smedley Butler wrote his classic War is a Racket in response to the pointless carnage of World War I. Some 15 to 22 million largely adolescent boys died for absolutely nothing. The fact that they can't provide a more accurate estimate than that tells you clearly about the incomprehensible numbers involved. In 1846, President Polk decided to wage war on Mexico, which was approved by Congress. Was the land grab that followed, including what became California, worth the lives of nearly 14,000 Americans who were killed, or the 25,000 Mexicans, including an unknown number of civilians. Mexico has lost 55% of its territory to the U.S. from 1836 to 1848. No wonder the La Raza folks hate gringos. In 1847, the Massachusetts legislature passed a resolution denouncing the war as a gigantic crime waged against a weak neighbor for the purposes of conquest, territorial aggrandizement, and the extension of slavery. In 1848, the House of Representatives passed a resolution stating that the war was unnecessarily and unconstitutionally commenced by the president. Among those prominent figures opposed the war was then Representative Abraham Lincoln, who said any people anywhere being inclined and having the power to have the right to rise up and shake off the existing government and form a new one that suits them better. In 2011, the court historians begrudgingly upped the number of deaths in our own Civil War, which I call it the War Against Northern Aggression or the War Against the Confederate States of America, to as many as 850,000, far more casualties than America has experienced anything of its countless foreign misadventures over the years. All those largely adolescent boys died because some southern states wanted to secede from the Union. You know, the whole consent of the governed thing, the entire foundation of a war of independence. But honest Abe Lincoln, those words in 1846 foretold exactly the situation within the Confederate States 15 years later. Let every citizen know that this union was definitely not a voluntary one. Consent of the governed was forever shattered, but very few seemed to notice or care. A full quarter of the male population of the South died. Talk about a lost generation. Lincoln annihilated the balance of powers and created the imperial template for all the best presidents to follow. And I've read The Real Lincoln and Lincoln Unmasked, and I'm like, wow. And I do recall reading from the Junior Encyclopedia Britannica, I was like 9, 10 years old, about the draft riots that happened in 1863, New York City draft riots. And even if you watch that movie, Gangs in New York, it talked about the Conscription Act. That's under Abraham Lincoln. And the fact is, based on the book and other historical references, The Real Lincoln, because he was a researcher himself, only white men were eligible, could only be drafted unless if you paid $300 to the government. $300 then was $30,000 today. So all the poor folks, the white Irish folks, the poor white people got screwed. That's when all hell broke loose, and they used racial epithets on innocent people. And I digress. But just to give you a little history lesson, check it out yourselves. Very amazing. Okay. The fact that our corrupt establishment promotes him as our greatest leader, the secular state of our civilization, says everything about that civilization. The rape and plunder of Mexican civilians was perfected to a fine by Lincoln's total war strategy. After perhaps the longest period of relative peace this country has ever experienced, in 1898, the first official false flag caused us to ignore George Washington's farewell address and the wise words of John Quincy Adams that America does not go abroad in search of foreign monsters to destroy. The power of a kept press, led by William Randolph Hearst, manipulated the country into a war on foreign soil. And the chant, "Remember the Maine," the U.S. ship that sunk, causing 3,289 deaths. The problem was the Spanish didn't sink the USS Maine, as even the court historians would eventually admit. More than 2,000 additional Americans died in the war itself, which took lives of anywhere from 55 to 60,000 Spanish troops. But Hearst sold a lot of papers. Another line has been crossed, one the founders could never have envisioned. President McKinley was a reluctant warrior, and a forgotten novelist, Taylor Caldwell, would depict his 1901 assassination as being directly related to that reluctance. With the sinking of the Maine, a battleship precedent, an identical situation with the torpedoing of the British ocean liners RM Lusitania in May 1915 would precipitate U.S. involvement in perhaps the least justifiable war the world has ever seen. Along with the millions of Europeans slaughtered because Archduke Ferdinand, had been assassinated, were some 116,516 U.S. soldiers. George M. Cohan became a Hollywood hero for riding over there to inspire these boys to sacrifice their lives in far-flung trenches. The odious statist character of Uncle Sam became very popular with the Orwellian slogan, Uncle Sam wants you, somehow appealing to the masses. Smedley Butler focused on all the new fortunes this war had created and declared that war was never about enemies, but opportunities for profit. And there are only two things we should fight for. One is the defense of our homes, and other is the Bill of Rights. Butler stated, reminding us that a few profit and the many pay. This is James Madison's quote. If tyranny and oppression comes to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy. We are still told, without any sarcasm meter on, that World War II was a good war, a really good war. So good that Hollywood still remembers it every year in some predictable film or TV series that attempts to further flog the very dead Nazi horse. It was really good that 60 to 75 million worldwide, and again, why such a wide range could 15 million be unaccounted for, died as a result, including 407,000 Americans. My Uncle Logan was at Normandy. He didn't die, but his life was ruined. Long before I was born, he would spend every Christmas crying hysterically, remembering all the boys he heard crying for their mothers. He was left with a plate in his head, never married, never had much of a job, probably died a 49-year-old virgin. But hey, thank you for your service. My mother-in-law's brother was shot down and killed. Never got to participate in the glorious baby boom, lived in the suburbs, experienced the greatest economy the world had ever known. There are 407,000 good stories like that. In the Korean conflict, our very first police action, which featured no attempt to grab land or settle any real conflict anywhere from 36,574 to 54,246 Americans were killed. Such precise numbers, yet with a margin of 18,000? Sure, we left an untold number of POWs and MIAs behind and covered that for the next 50 years. But still, shouldn't we have a more exact count? All told, 2.5 to 3 million died, with as many as 1 million being civilians. Well, if you read my work, you know that where U.S. troops go, civilian casualties follow. It's an American exceptionalism thing you wouldn't understand. When old warrior Douglas MacArthur actually attempted to win the Korean thing. Give him hell! Harry Truman fired him. We can't have you winning any war. Stay in your demarcation zones. Rape and rob all you want, just don't win. I mean, wasn't the good World War II enough for these monsters? They literally couldn't wait a decade until orchestrating a mad bloodletting in Korea. Korea was part of the phony Cold War, where we suddenly turned our backs on the beloved Soviets and Uncle Joe Stalin, our trusted allies in the good war. The same sources that never stopped citing the 6 million Jews lost in the Holocaust with the capital H, also quietly admit that the Soviets, are allies in the good war, killed as many 20 million Catholics. Now, I'm just a community college dropout, but it seems that this represents even bigger ethnic religious cleansing, genocide, Holocaust with 2 capitals, HS. And yet Hollywood has yet to film a single production about it. During this ridiculous Cold War, Joe McCarthy was demonized for trying to expose the connections between the Soviets and our government, as we set up 2 proxy conflicts, first in Korea, then in Vietnam. Not once did we ever confront the dreaded Soviets on any battlefield. Only Hitler did that. But we spent a lot of money to beat them at something, not sure just what. Over 58,000 Americans died in Vietnam War, a war where the enemy and ally looked alike and wore no uniforms. It resulted in the first powerful anti-war movement this country has ever had, albeit controlled by the same forces who control all opposition. JFK was killed because he was already delineated his withdrawal from Vietnam, with all Americans be gone by 1965. That's one of them, you can say. It also didn't help that he was the first and last president to take Israel to task, telling Israel leaders, David Ben-Gurion, that if they continue developing nuclear weapons, we will cut off all aid. We all know what happened to JFK and what happened in Vietnam. Israel felt so emboldened that they attacked our ship, the USS Liberty, an event that was covered up for decades. They now control the vertical and horizontal of our society. It's funny how we enjoy occupying so many other nations, but are now ironically occupied ourselves. Zog, as is now being openly referred to by many online. This is what he says here. This is what one of JFK's quotes. I'm talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and to build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely in peace for our time, but peace for all time. When the neocons, which consisted largely of former communist Jews like Irving Kristol, took control of the executive branch during the Reagan presidency, the forever wars were inevitable. Inevitable. Conservatism was converted from those opposing high taxes and big government into Enron, another influential non-Irish figure, devotees, cheerleaders for a greater Israel. The born-again movement was rebranded as fundamentalist Christianity, and not even the absurdity of televangelists like Jim and Tammy Baker or Jimmy Swagger could stop it. It became more about God's supposed chosen people than Jesus Christ. The Gulf War in 1989 concerned CIA asset Saddam Hussein, whom we supported and sold poison gas during the Iran-Iraq War, invading the tiny artificial oil oligarchy of Kuwait. Ambassador April Gillespie lied and told that we'd be cool with them going into Kuwait. Think Trumpstein bombing Iran twice during peace negotiations. We lost 250 troops when we broke our word, while 200,000 Iraqi civilians were killed, along with the surrendering troops, which our boys bulldozed and buried alive. Weapons of mass destruction, which of course didn't exist. Dubai Bush proclaiming you're either with us or with the terrorists. The 9/11 inside job, the Patriot Act, the monstrously unconstitutional Homeland Security Department, over 4,000 U.S. troops killed, and some 200,000 more Iraqi civilians were killed. This doesn't include the estimated 500,000 babies and young children who died as the result of the embargo on Iraq. But Madeleine Albright said it was worth it. And I've seen her in person, Madeleine Albright, at some function a long time ago. She looks like an overgrown Miss Piggy with her nice little long dress and all that. Seeing her speak, I'm like, yeah. Go to the bathroom is more inspiring. But I'll continue on. Maybe it was good too. As good as Uncle Sam or the dead as Dresden, or many, many German and Japanese females our greatest generation youngsters raped. No wonder they hate us for our freedom. Then we lost over 2,000 U.S. troops in a pointless occupation of Afghanistan, over 66,000 Afghani troops, and over 47,000 civilians died during the U.S. occupation. Julian Assange and then Bradley Manning got in trouble for exposing the horrendous misdeeds of our troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, like urinating on corpses or playing soccer with decapitated heads, shooting dogs for sport, and raping women, little girls, and boys. Nobody said freedom was free. According to the War Cost website, the war in Iran is costing U.S. taxpayers $21,800 per second. Just since 1995, when the neocons had grabbed complete control over our bipartisan foreign policy, the U.S. has intervened in 37 countries, spent nearly $5 trillion, and caused death and devastation in its wake. If climate change was a real thing, no one would be guiltier of negatively impacting the climate than the U.S. military. Too bad Doge never got to audit the Pentagon as Elon Musk wanted. Imagine the gems they would have found. From Abraham Lincoln to Donald Trump, the only president who resisted the pressure to go to war was John F. Kennedy. Trump went from criticizing all the senseless wars to becoming the biggest interventionist we've seen in the White House since World War II. He already kidnapped Venezuelan leader. He says that he will take Cuba if he wants to. Maybe the disaster in Iran with our forces displaying predictable levels of incompetence will slow him down. Everybody knows the war is wrong. War is wrong. Unless your home is being attacked, it's unethical and stupid. They've forgotten Jeanette Rankin, the only member of Congress to vote against declaring war on Japan, said the war is a slaughter of human beings temporarily regarded as enemies. Some families who lose a child can be assuaged with medals and sanctimonious words from politicians. Some, like my friend Cindy Sheen in camp. To those whose lives ended so prematurely because of a government edict, or those who came home maimed forever war, was exactly what was one of the most despicable military leaders to ever draw a sword. William T. Sherman said it was hell. None of our soldiers died for us. They died for a Belk helicopter and Standard Oil, and Brown Brothers, and Blackwater, and the Federal Reserve. And in our lifetimes, first and foremost, Israel. They were individual displays of heroism, but they weren't heroes. They were victims, but they aren't allowed to be in our culture of victimhood. The war has never made lives of the common people any better, with the exception of our fight for independence and the War of 1812, in which our shores were attacked. It was it's funny about the War of 1812. I saw an actual cool documentary on it. It was done by a Canadian. He looked at both sides, and it was they made mistakes. They did both sides were in the wrong. When the United States tried to go to Canada, it was a stalemate. And when the British came in after the war with of Waterloo, they burnt down Washington D.C., but it was a stalemate as well. And they both did the whole Treaty of Ghent, but like a month, but no one got the word until the two battles that happened in Louisiana. Of course, the battle in New Orleans, which Andrew Jackson was you can say very courageous what he did. But I'll just continue on here. Okay, let me see where I'm at. Ooh, yeah. It has paddled the pockets of those who are already rich and paved the way for the new fortunes of those willing to sell souls. World War I introduced deadly globalism to the world. World War II made the world safe for communism and Zionism. Boys too young to vote would have been husbands and fathers. Some perhaps inventing things that would benefit mankind were lost in the slaughter. Their last words whispered to loved ones who were too far away to hear them. Are parades and flag waving worth that? War is the only way humans can legally kill each other. I advocate for death row inmates to be placed in prominent roles for any war. they make good soldiers and would welcome the excitement. And some are now following up on a notion I've heard for years. Every politician voting to commit troops somewhere must have their closest blood relative in the front line. In my opinion, the ones who want to vote for that, throw their asses in the front line. That's my intake, okay? Today, no one is different than it was during the Civil War when the cry was, rich man's war, poor man's fight. So, our utterly insane foray into Iran is in keeping with our hollow traditions. Sure, Trump's bewildering pronouncements give it a surrealistic flair that the others didn't have. Sure, this was the most obviously pointless war yet that was fought directly because of the subversiveness to another nation. But as its essence, it's like the others. Death and destruction, loud bellowing, immoral leaders attempting to take the moral high ground. Iran has never done anything to us. We, on the other hand, overthrew their elected leader, Mossadegh, in 1953. I think it's called Operation Ajax. And shot down their civilian airliner, killing 290 Iranians in 1988. But the propagandists in our state-controlled media assure that Iran has been in war with us for 47 years. We need to stop them from killing Americans. And I have yet to see a single documented instance of any American killed by Iran. But Israel feels threatened by them, and all alone among all the nations, they have given themselves a Samson option to destroy the world if they feel threatened. So, here we are. After all this ugly history of war, embroiled in yet another quagmire, assured that our foolhardy involvement, our economy may very well collapse. But it's worth it. You can't put a price tag on freedom, although push-up Pete Hegseth is already begging for $200 billion more. And will that money come from? Doesn't it have to be appropriate? I mean, if they could just get the money when they need it, surely our woefully neglected infrastructure would have been rebuilt. I don't know how many U.S. families will be notified of their loved one's death, but if it's your family, it becomes the biggest tragedy in the world. One would think would be tried of war by now, but I suppose it's appropriate that we should be at war. As usual, on the 250th anniversary of our independence, after all, we've been at war for about 90% of our existence. That's what we do. Waste money and prematurely end lives for those who barely started living. Ignore the home front and the welfare of the citizens. Harry Patch, last surviving soldier of World War I, defined it as well as anyone has ever had. He said, war is organized murder and nothing else. Yep. So, I have to look at that and say he's absolutely correct. And I've read that book by Spencer Butler's War is a Racket. And it was really good. It's public domain. You can look at it. You can read it. You can listen to an audio. Just search engine it. You'll find it. It was well written. And you have to always look at the bigger picture. This is why, my friends, I renounced these wars. I was against the war on terror because it was always been against its people, including on a domestically too. I'll be very fair on that. And I always said 9/11 was a one world order agenda, and I still say it today. If people still get offended by that, I don't give a damn. My free speech is more important than your feelings. War is disgusting, and that's what the globalists want. So after this cold collapse, they'll have the idea of this expanding technocracy, and we'll be going, please rise for a corporate anthem. That's from Rollerball 1975 to be exact. Or other angles. This is what the order wants. They don't give a damn about any of us, regardless of race, color, creed, gender, etc. That's what I always tell people out there. Focus on bigger things because broader fish need to be fried. And don't even go ape over the pettiness. These faction slaves going out and parading no more king because they want their king or queen at their necks, right? Hey, under Barack Obama, they attacked Libya, no one gave a damn. But when Trump does it, everyone has a hard on. You're nothing more than hypocrites. Doesn't matter if you're red or blue. Your faction enslavement is nothing to me. Think liberty, my friends. As Jefferson said it once, commerce to all and foreign entanglements to none. Even George Washington said the same thing. If you don't learn from the past, my friends, we're damned to repeat it. Well, that's my intake on this, and that is it. I thank everyone for listening, plus feel free to download and share this with your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use decorum. Hit me via email to ll3.podcast@proton.me if you want to donate, go to PayPal to me or cash out at /lucky3. If you support Donald Jeffries' work, activist post, I say do it and look at everything responsibly. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.